Florida Governor Ron DeSantis officially joined the US presidential race earlier this morning and chose to announce his candidacy on Twitter. Take a look.
Truth must be our foundation, and common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. In Florida, we proved that it can be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. We showed that we can and must revitalize America. We need the courage to lead and the strength to win. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
Joining me now is Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen. Annalise, thank you for your time. Ron DeSantis certainly isn't mincing his words here. I imagine it's manna for the base, but what's your reaction to the video?
Look, the video is one thing. It's been the Twitter spaces that's dominated the analysis here. This is a new approach. Normally you have these big rallies where you have people in a room, a rousing speech, and you try and get the enthusiasm whipped up for what's going to be an 18-month campaign if he does end up being the nominee. In this approach, he joined Elon Musk in a Twitter space. And for those who aren't aware, I know I wasn't before this came up, a Twitter space is an audio-only forum where anyone can join in and have this discussion once the person who's moderating it allows you in. And so Elon Musk hosted it. And unfortunately for Ron DeSantis, the first 20 minutes were completely plagued by technical issues. What we saw was very little. There were audio like fridges, there was bits that dropped out, they started and then it dropped out again. They ended up having to start a whole new room. And then it did go underway, but it was over an hour of discussing different policy aspects that Ron DeSantis wants to approach, questions from supporters about how he's going to run this campaign. And it was only after that that he started doing traditional media interviews, the first being with Fox. And so this is very different from the normal approach and does indicate that they are trying to do things differently. But the question is going to be, what was the cut through?
The creativity in the approach sounds good, but it sounds like those technical problems wouldn't have pleased anyone. What are the polls saying about the likelihood of achieving a President DeSantis?
Well, this is early days. You do have to start getting to the race now. There's going to start being presidential nominee debates for the Republicans, at least right now for the Democrats, with Joe Biden being the only serious candidate for them. That's pretty much off the table. But for Republicans, at least, this is going to start as early as August. And the primaries will then begin late January for next year. So it is getting to crunch time, but a lot of things still can move. Remember when Donald Trump joined the race in 2015, he wasn't taken seriously as a prospect. He wasn't polling very well. Right now, in every major poll, Donald Trump is miles ahead of Ron DeSantis, who had been bleeding some numbers over the last few weeks. His campaign will be hoping that this announcement, the way it's been done, will garner them some support, but there's going to be months of seeing how they fare on the road. They're going to have to go to those swing states, New Hampshire, Iowa, and talk to ordinary voters, get them excited. And right now, the advantage is very much in Donald Trump's court.
And finally, Trump supporters have come out swinging, using the online glitches that played the announcement as the basis for their criticism. Does this mean it's shaping up to be a nasty race between the two Republican hopefuls?
Oh, absolutely. This is the time of the campaign that the gloves will come off. Donald Trump's been quite critical of Ron DeSantis publicly ramping up his attacks for the last weeks, if not months, as he became a more realistic prospect to take him on for the Republican nomination. Ron DeSantis had stayed largely above that fray, waiting to get into the actual campaign. But we've seen in these first interviews, he hasn't been afraid to push back on some of Trump's criticisms, but he hasn't really come out swinging yet. One of the things he did say on Fox that's quite interesting is that he will be going to the debates, that he does think that's important and he wants to make that a priority for the campaign. This is different to what Donald Trump said. He did this in the last election as well, where he kind of played with the idea of not going to the debates. It ended up being the best thing he did because he wasn't following any of the rules. He knocked around the other candidates and he came out on top. Ron DeSantis, on previous debates for the governorship in particular, has had criticism levelled at him about how he can handle things on the spot when things are thrown at him, whether he's been quick on his feet. But he has a lot of experience in his time since then, and this is the big one. So it seems like this would be when he does pull it out of a hat. But it's going to get messy. And remember, it is between these two now, but these campaigns are notoriously fickle. You never know who's going to pull ahead. You never know who's going to stuff up and fall out. And there could still be other big names to throw themselves into the mix. So it's going to be fascinating to watch.